the demand is 1800 over the square root of x plus 1, and the supply is 2 the square root of x plus 1, and they're giving us, of course, x greater than or equal to 0. Good. Okay, perfect. So the first question is asking us to find the equilibrium point. What do you think? How do we get the equilibrium point? What is the first step? It's okay if you're wrong. We need to communicate, please. How do we get the equilibrium point? We know this from chapter R.
Set them equal to each other?
Exactly. Because one of them is increasing, the other one is decreasing. This is the equilibrium point when the y value is the same for a particular x value. Excellent. So the equilibrium point, d of x, must equal x of x. Awesome. Thank you very much. So 1800 over the square root of x plus 1 must equal 2 the square root of x plus 1. Perfect. Now let's think about this. How do I solve this for x? Any suggestions on how to proceed? What should I do next? Any suggestions? And then I'll give you my suggestion. It's okay if you're wrong. What do you think? What do you think? No suggestions at all? Well, notice one thing here, that this is over 1. Does that ring a bell? Any suggestion now? Knowing that the denominator here is 1. So I have a fraction on one side, the equal symbol, and another fraction on the other. So this is something like a over b equals c over d. How is this called, and how do we proceed? Anyone remembers the name of this? Anyone? So this is a proportion. Only in a proportion we are allowed to cross multiply. A proportion means a fraction on the left, the equal symbol, and another fraction on the right. Nothing else, no other connections left and right. So then AD equals BC. Since this is a proportion, we're going to do exactly what I just said. We are going to cross multiply. And 1800 times 1 is 1800. 2 the square root of x plus 1 times the square root of x plus 1. What do we have on this side? Please suggest, what do we get on this side? Anyone, please?
Is it 2 square root of x plus 1 squared?
Correct. But that is exactly x plus 1. Perfect.
Okay.
The square root of x plus 1 squared is x plus 1. Good. So now, of course, what I like to do is divide both sides by 2. So I have 900 equals x plus 1. All I have to do is move 1 to solve the linear equation 899. This is not an equilibrium point. This is the equilibrium point has x at 899, but I have to determine the y value. How do I determine the y value of that point? So this is 899, but I need to determine the y value. How do I determine the y value?
Plug it in.
Exactly. Plug it in. It doesn't matter where I plug it in. I can plug it in here or I can plug it in here because I set them equal to each other. This number plugged in here must equal the other number plugged in, 899. So 1800, 899 plus 1 is 900. The square root of 900 is 30. So 1800 over 30. So let's write it. So d of 899 equals 1800 over the square root of 900. And that is 1800 divided by 30. And I simplify and I get 90. I'm sorry, 60. So the equilibrium point, that was the first step, just algebra, no calculus at all here, 899 comma 60. Now, in step number 2, we are ready, and step number 2 and 3, we are now ready to compute the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. It's a good idea to write them together so you have them in front of you. One of them, the first one, is the integral from d of x dx from 0 to x, from 0 always to 899, minus the area of this rectangle, minus 899 multiplied by 60. The producer surplus starts with this 899 times 60 minus the same integral to 899, but not from this function, from the other function. B, this one, the consumer surplus goes with the demand, the function. The producer surplus goes with the supply function, because that's the producer surplus. It goes with the other function. All we have to do now is determine these two integrals, and we're done. That's the whole thing. And there is nothing else to it. So the consumer surplus, the integral from 0 to 899 from 1800 over the square root of x plus 1 dx minus, I'm going to multiply this 899 times 60, so 53940. So we have several options here. Of course, I'm going to move 1800 outside. And the integral from 0 to 899 of 1 over the square root of x plus 1 dx, and then minus 53,940. Now, yes, I accept if you determine this with a graphing calculator. Acceptable, that's fine. However, I will have to use a substitution. U equals x plus 1. It happens that du equals dx. I have to change the limits of integration. And I have 1 over the square root of u, so I will change that into u to negative 1/2, as you know we have to do that. So this is 1800. When x is 0, u starts at 1. When x is 899 plus 1, 900. This is 1 over the square root of u, or u to negative 1/2 du. So this is from the substitution rule, minus 53,940. So 1800, if you remember, we increase the power by 1. So u to 1/2 over 1/2, from 1 to 900, minus 53,940. I flip, and I get 30, what is it, 3600. The square root of 900, which is 30, minus the square root of 1, which is 1. And then minus 53,940. So what do I have? I have 3,600 times 29 minus 53,940. Not possible. Not, I'm saying not possible because I didn't expect such a big number. So I'm gonna check my calculations. I had no idea, but I like to check my calculations. Here it is. So math 9. What was it? 0 to 899. And then we have 1800. And then divided by the square root of x plus 1. And of course, I want to insert my parentheses here. Okay, dx. And then minus, what was it? 899 times 60, right? Okay, I was just not expecting that big of a number. Okay, fine. So now the producer surplus is this number, 53,940 minus the integral from 0 to 899, the same thing, but from 2 to the square root of x plus 1. To the square root of x plus 1 dx. I will use the same substitution, u equals x plus 1, and du equals dx. Okay, my page 4. So 53,940 minus 2. Again, the same 1 to 900, and this is the square root of u. So u to 1/2 du. So 53,940 minus 2, u to 3/2 over 3/2 from 1 to 900. So again, 53,940 minus 4/3. When I plug in 900, I have 30 to the 3rd power and minus 1. We'll check again, but let me see my calculations. 53,940 minus 4 divided by 3, and then 30 to power 3. One more time, a square root is 30 to the 3rd power, yes, and minus 1. Okay, so I got 17,941 and 33. Okay, and like before, I'll check just to make sure. So that was 899 times 60 minus the integral. And again, it was from 0 to 899. From to the square root x plus 1 dx. And when I click enter, I should get 17,941.33. 17,941.33. Okay. Very good pick. So now I would like us to work on a word problem. So we have demand function, we have the supply function, find the equilibrium point, find the consumer surplus and producer surplus. And these other 3 questions are not part of the course. Okay? So we only discuss the equilibrium point or any other point, and consumer surplus and producer surplus. Okay? These are the deadweight loss and other things that are not presented in this class. Is this okay? Would you like to choose a different one? We can choose a different one. If this is not a good one, we can choose something else. You choose. So we can illustrate the same thing, exactly the same thing, but this time with a word problem to see what applications we have here. Anyone would like to choose, or I will choose 25.
I think 25 is okay.
Okay. If you want to change, just let me know. So 25. Suppose the demand is given to us 275 minus 1 is 1.25x. The supply is also given to us as 135 plus 0.5x. And x is in thousands. X units, thousands. Okay. And d of x and s of x are in dollars per unit. Okay. Find the equilibrium point and then the consumer and producer surplus. Good. So let's start with number 1, the equilibrium point. How do I find that? How do we find the equilibrium point? You told me a few minutes ago that we have to set them equal to each other. So d of x equals s of x. 275 minus 1.25x equals 135 plus 0.5x. I have to move 135 and I have to move negative 1.25, or the other way around, it doesn't matter. So 275 minus 135 is 140 equals 125 plus 0.5 is 1.75x. And then x equals 140 over 1.75. We're going to check in a minute. If you notice I messed up a number, please let me know. So x equals 80. And then I'll check. I can always check. 275 minus 1.25 times 80. Does that equal 135 plus 0.5 times 80? Yes. So that's correct. So when I plug in 80, I have 175. So the equilibrium point is 80, 175. Because when we plugged it in, that's what we got. Good. So now, step 2, the consumer surplus. Can anyone remind us the formula for the consumer surplus? What should I write for the formula for the consumer surplus? Give it a shot, please.